can say like, hey, I gone through the engineering process. I've worked as an engineer in the industry now, and engineers are people who bring those type of solutions to and bring those type of resources to people. So that became my calling.
I've contributed over 10 publications. So I want to say the number is like 14 to be exact. Been invited to talk at a number of conferences, been invited to...
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What have you done? And, tell us about your experience going through the education system, how you got into STEM, and what you're doing now. Or I guess take it in whatever order you want, but just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So my name is Chris, and I am 32 years old. I'm an old fart, 1 foot in the grave. But a little bit about me. I did my undergrad at UC Irvine in mechanical engineering and material science engineering. I did my bachelor's there. Was not a stellar student, I have to admit. Had a sub 3.5 GPA. But once I graduated, I worked at a software company, simulation software company for 6 years, including an intern year. And then during those years, I decided I wanted to go back to school. So I did my master's at UCLA. This master's program was part-time. The company paid for it. And after I finished my master's, I had 2 choices in front of me. One choice was to continue on the education path and just go all the way, finish to PhD and finish with a PhD, or going back into industry and continue what I was doing in industry and go there. And I chose the PhD route. And personally, I went with that route because I was not happy at the time at that company. The company, the team was great. So I want to preface by saying that it was not the people. I had a great manager, great team, great coworkers. It was more of a chance for me to take a step back and learn more, to contribute more. As even at the company, I was slowly getting in a position where I was starting to lead projects and take on more leadership, but I felt like I was too inexperienced. I felt like in order for me to really grow, I had to kind of take a step back and learn more, learn about what was the state of the art, which in what I was doing, it would be in machine learning and in material science. So the company that I worked for, they did simulation software. I won't go too much into that, but what I did specifically, we did a material data management system. And thinking back, knowing what I know now, I think I would have made tremendous contributions, would have helped the company grow a lot more. Had I know back then what I do know now. So I think ultimately, for me, I think the education paid off. And so I started my PhD journey in 2018, and I recently finished in 2022. So in early 2018, I said goodbye to the company, started full-time PhD at UCLA. When I started my PhD journey at UCLA, I worked in a couple different labs. So Glenn knows this intimately, but I've tried out a lot of different things, but worked in a lab where I had hands-on materials experience, worked in something called a clean room, which was working with devices, so creating bioelectronic devices inside of an environment that required you to wear like a bunny suit, because you can't have contaminants. We're creating things at really, really small scales, so like micron scales and nanometer scale kind of thing. And So yeah, did a lot of hands-on work, material testing, materials characterization, you name it, materials analysis, used a million different microscopic techniques to analyze materials. And then also on the other end, I joined a second lab, like I mentioned. So in this second lab was more on the computation side. So I focused on machine learning, deep learning, and applying machine learning to design and optimize materials. And between these two labs, so with the 4 years I spent as a PhD student, I've contributed over 10 publications. So I want to say the number is like 14 to be exact. Been invited to talk at a number of conferences, been invited to submit to a number of publications as well. In fact, even to this day, I am still working on finalizing a couple of publications, and I have a patent application out there. So fingers crossed. If that gets approved in the next 6 or 8 months, I'll have my first patent as well. So yeah, so engineering has been my passion, and specifically, I think AI and machine learning is really interesting to me, but more applied to a domain to solve kind of material sciencey related problems. I think AI is great, but contributing to developing the algorithm is not necessarily my core interest. There's a lot of math involved, and it requires. I have mad respect for the people that do focus on that, but my personal focus and interest is on applying the AI in new and interesting ways. And yeah, I can.
You don't have to share where you're working now. I think we'll save that for a future episode. But I mean, let me quickly ask you a question, and then I'll introduce myself too, which is going back to before you got into your undergrad. What motivated you into choosing engineering, and how did you go about choosing that major when you were going about the selection process? And also tell us a little bit about why you chose that school, UC Irvine, that you went to.
Right. So during high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, had zero idea. Didn't really receive a lot of guidance from family either. My growing up situation was kind of interesting. The only real family guidance coming from an Asian household was just to get straight A's. It was just to do well in classes and get to a good college, but with no specific reason. And I think which contributed to a general lack in interest in a lot of things. Actually, when I first applied to college, just kind of thinking back, my applications were kind of very meandering, if I were to be very honest. But basically, what I did at the time, and actually, I think it's kind of thinking back, I think that also applied to a lot of my peers as well. Nobody really knew what they were doing. And for me, when I spoke to my high school counselor, actually my high school counselor didn't help for shit either. But so what I did was, I knew I wanted to stay in California, and I knew I wanted to, get into a quote unquote good college to succeed. So I just applied to maybe 10 different colleges in the UC system, because that was a thing to do. Applied to a couple of private colleges, and Irvine was one of the few that I got into, and the best that I got into. I think I applied to a couple of Cal States here and there as well, and got into those as well. But ultimately, it became a matter of, okay, what was the best college, on paper, ranking wise, that I got into at the time? It was UC Irvine, and it was kind of a shallow reason, but being perfectly honest, that was how I went about picking my college. and ended up going to the undergrad college that I went to at the time. So how I got into engineering, so when I first got into Irvine, I actually got in undeclared, and eventually I declared a major. I majored in business economics, and then after like 1 year of it, taking a couple classes, I actually uh, 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 sorry, yeah,
I didn't know that you were actually, and
yeah,
then
no,
you did business.
no, I studied business after majoring 1 year in business and taking a couple of classes. I was actually swayed by my dorm mates. So I lived in a dorm in an undergrad, and it was on campus housing, and made a couple of friends, and then these friends at the time they were studying mechanical engineering, and they were bragging about how much engineers make uh, out of college in comparison to other majors. And I thought, okay, and I did a little bit of research myself into that. And I was like, okay, hey, look, you know what? They're not wrong. Uh, so hey, it looks like mechanical engineering, it may be pretty promising. So I gave that a shot, and then decided to switch majors and found that more interesting. And I think, yeah. So basically, that was my introduction into engineering. Just hearing from a couple of friends that that engineers make more money than people studying business, and I just I had a leap of faith, and went with it. So yeah, at the time, I think it was tough deciding the specific engineering major because there's so many different disciplines of engineering. There's environmental, civil, material science, electrical, and I was really close to doing electrical and computer science, but I took my first programming class and didn't really enjoy it. If I were to be very honest, I had a strong admiration for it, but I didn't enjoy it, and furthermore, I didn't have the knack for it. I think that was the most important part. I sucked at it, and I think I didn't have the patience for it back then. And so I knew then, okay, I hate anything dealing with programming. I'm not a good programmer. And then I like mechanical because I like making things. Feel like mechanical engineering teaches you a very diverse set of skills from CAD, so designing things in 3D, to how to machine it, mechanical engineering is very, very interesting. It's a study of how kind of to design things, to include the physics, and how a lot of pieces move together to form one complete system. So it's kind of at the time I thought it was very interesting, and there are a lot of interesting companies as well. Like you can work in automotive, and at the time I felt like there was a lot of growth in the automotive industry. A lot of car companies in the U.S. U.S. is being like one of the top car manufacturers in the world, and then with the rise of EVs as well, and there's also plane technology. I think so. Again, I think what actually gave me most of the influence was my environment. I hung around with a lot of. I happened to hang around with a lot of engineers. They grew on me, and I thought, doing my own personal research, I always thought that business was something that you learn along the way. I just felt that having some firm technical experience would make you more valuable in the workplace. Whether that is true or not, I guess that's up for debate. But anyways, what drew me to engineering was just the fact that I was learning something technical, and I felt that, generally speaking, like I felt that business concepts were kind of easy, not to, diminish what people in business actually learn. I'm pretty sure once you get into higher education, it becomes more advanced. But yeah, starting out, I think a combination of having friends there alongside with me that introduced me to it, and yeah, and having tried it out, kind of developing a fascination for it. I think that's how I started there. Yeah. What about you,
Wow,
buddy?
I mean, there are a lot of things about that experience that you just shared that I didn't even know about. I felt like we've talked so much, and it was actually very exciting to learn because there are definitely a lot of differences in your experience and mine,
Mhm.
but there are actually more similarities than I had imagined. I didn't expect that there were quite a few commonalities. Number one is that like you came in undeclared. Like I also at the same age had no idea. I didn't go straight from high school to college either. But basically, I had a long period of undeclared,
Mhm.
whereas you were able to transition that to engineering much faster. Um, when I did decide on something, the first thing I did do was I went straight into economics as well, and it's economics and sociology. And I was very influenceable at that age. I remember I actually went straight from high school to community college.
Mhm.
Um, and I was very impressionable. And one of my professors in macroeconomics, I even remember his name. I think it was Roger Mack. I don't know if I remember his first name was Roger, but I do remember his last name was Mack. And he taught both at Stanford University and at Phil College, since they're not too far away. And he was just very charismatic. I remember first day of class, he even jokingly like wanted to have everyone he want all the chairs to face floor like you would expect. But then he would just go to the back of the class and start lecturing from the back of the class instead, so then everyone have to like change their chairs. And part of it was like he was trying to say that like expectations and sociology, like you have a lot of these assumptions before you about these situations before you even like you're conscious of it. Or that's not the point of it, but you have expectations, and sometimes you aren't aware of those expectations before you kind of have something that gets you to like kind of get a reality check. So it's a little fun exercise, but at the same time, it was just like it just stuck with me, just like how different and how creative it was. I felt like the type of stimulus I never really got in the same way than when I was in high school. And even if I did, I don't feel like I was ready to receive that information when I was younger. So kind of when you're in community college, you're kind of accepting the fact that you're looking to go to the next level. An associate's degree is definitely a good foundation and just the core principles in different majors, both whether you're STEM or you're in liberal arts. It has the foundation there. But if you want to go to get that bachelor's degree or beyond, everyone's goal is to transfer that's interested in higher education. So to wrap that around, I thought just like you sharing that part of it was just very fascinating, because I didn't know we both shared that econ aspect. That might be because of our parents' background, but that was very interesting. And the second thing I wanted to say about that was the influence that you had by your companions. That was the same effect that I had when I made the transition to engineering. I was hanging around a lot of people at the time who either went through the engineering background or were in the middle of the engineering background, and they were just very impressionable on me. I like that the way they can break something down and help you understand something that's very technical and communicate it, or able to just create a lot of technical things that like I just felt like were magic. Basically, I knew that they required a lot of math and science and training in a lot of tools, but just what they're capable of and how they think and how they understand the world, or like both mechanical things or electrical things, or just how they process things. Their logic was definitely very, very strong. I admired that ability, and I felt that that was a profession where I could contribute a lot of values in the same way that you felt too. Like you could bring more value to wherever you're working. But a lot of engineers are great problem solvers and can build things that don't exist and improve people's lives. And I felt like that was that was just a very good calling and something to dedicate my life to. So very happy to share that, and find that that's a commonality that we had in our experiences and how we both ended up into the same path, and how we ended up meeting each other at grad school. Quick thing, just I'll do another.
What was the motivation behind like going to community college first? Like from high school to community college. Was it to eventually like to transition to another, like get the prereqs out of the way kind of thing, or like what was the plan there?
Yeah, there was no plan beforehand of like in high school I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna go community college and I'm gonna go from there to transfer. The plan at that time in high school was I had no plan, and I wasn't very confident in my own abilities. Now, I had a very interesting high school journey. I actually started my first 2 years in private school, and in that environment, like you're around a lot of wealthy and successful people with different backgrounds, and expectation is, everyone wants to go to some of the top schools in the country, regardless of your major. But there's just a lot of opportunities from that.
Yeah,
I ended up,
I think I agree. I think that's a wrong way to look at it. Right? Like
absolutely, especially,
especially and even like to get into these top schools, that's very interesting. Like even like to get into these top schools, you need a sense of purpose. Like you need to, I feel like it's better. You need to kind of build a track record or build like not like an identity per se, but like build a reason that you want to get into these top institutions are top institutions for a reason, right? It's like you like nowadays you really can't just get straight A's and kill it on the standardized testing because there's a million people like that nowadays. But I think what's like my advice for the youth, right, would just be like at an early age, I think it's important to develop some sort of interest. I think that's important. I think it's important to develop like because you ended up with people like you and me who why do I want to go to college? Why the fuck what am I going to major in? Right? Like I think like maybe like it's good at an early age to expose people like this is what engineering is. Oh hey, like this is what becoming a doctor is. This is what a lawyer does, right? And almost kind of plant those seeds so that you kind of prepare accordingly. But I think like maybe like a generation or two ago, things were different where people used college kind of as that time to figure it out. But what's weird is that like when you enroll in a college, you have to declare a major. You almost have to like have decided already. You know what I mean? And then you have to kind of apply to this institution and say, hey, here is why I'm qualified to get into this XYZ program. But I feel like a lot of people like they don't think about that until they have to apply for college and they're like, oh shit. Like at least this is how I was. I was like, oh shit, like, oh, when I applied to this school, I need to declare a major. Like, what the fuck am I gonna declare? Like, I don't even know what this shit means. Right? Like I took all these physics classes, but like what's the difference between a materials engineer and a mechanical engineer, right? So I don't know. I feel like back then it was I think like people who figure that out like have a higher chance of getting into these like top institutions. But I feel like there was a period of time where a lot of people use college kind of as that time to figure it out, to kind of fuck around a little bit. But because and I think a part of that was also because college was much cheaper back then, like undisputedly. Like it was like $150 or whatever. You could have a part-time job and pay off a full college tuition. But nowadays it's a little different. But yeah, anyway, sorry, back there. I'm kind of curious, like what kind of led to well, I'm kind of curious to learn more about like what that private school experience was like. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with a lot of what you said there. And the one thing I wanted to add before I answer your question was, I feel like even when you're at school today, your curriculum occupies so much of your time and your mental like focus that you don't necessarily even have time to think about, hey, what else should I be doing? Although you do have that opportunity in discussions with a lot of people, but depending on your workload and your course load, and especially in engineering, if you want to graduate in 4 years, which is actually, I feel like less common than to actually take more than 4 years, your workload keeps you busy to the point where you don't really have time to be, thinking about other things. Like you got exams like every other week, and you got a lot of work to do. You got projects, you got papers. and you just got to stay afloat and keep your mind sane, because it can be it's a grind to get through the academic system. But to rewind time, going back to my private school experience in high school, I actually did public school throughout my entire like K through middle school. And I actually, the reason why a lot of my reasons at that time were so trivial, but one of my best friends went from public school to private school in middle school. So then I wanted to join him. So after I finished my middle school, I had to actually take a standardized test and do an interview at this private school to even get in. And I remember somehow my English skills were always kind of like iffy. My grammar was a little bit better than my reading comprehension and vocab. But my math skills were, I jumped a grade in math growing up. So my math was above average. And just to do a little humble brag, I remember I scored very high in the percentile range for math and English. I think the English was actually just luck, because I probably just guessed correctly. It was multiple choice. I was actually surprised how high my English score was, given my history of not just being like basically average on English. And that allowed me to be able to get an interview at that high school. And then I did a little, tour, and I talked to the dean or the principal, and my parents were there too. It was kind of embarrassing. And they asked me, like, why do you think you should be here? Like, if you were in my position, would you admit you to our school? I don't even remember what I told the person. I just remember just saying like, yeah, I think I'd give myself a chance or something like that. And, it seemed like I have a lot of potential or something. And so something along that line. And I was just happy that I was able to make it in, and I was able to reunite with my best friend and, take advantage of all these resources that I never knew that there was, like computer science courses, graphic arts courses, Japanese. I was able to take a lot of these classes that that aren't really offered in community college, in public school. Now that ended up becoming me taking everything for granted, and then getting a little spoiled, getting too involved in extracurricular stuff, like getting into some after school sports, and playing games with my friends, learning how to do glow stringing, getting into collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards and playing at tournaments, stuff like that. Just a lot of unproductive stuff, but just enjoying life, because life was so good at the time. And then after 2 years of that school, I ended up going back to public school just because I wasn't really enjoying things. My grades weren't that great either. And I had a lot of interest in playing basketball, and a lot of my public school friends they're still my neighbors. And so I ended up going back to public school and, hanging out with them a lot more. And during that time, I just felt like it was just a downward spiral. Like, if you're investing in my stock of like just my own personal life, it was on the decline for sure. So I wasn't very focused in school. I felt like, I was ostracized, having gone to public school, then go to private school. All the people that I met from middle school and elementary school, they knew I came back from private school, and they would make fun of me, like, oh, like why are you coming back here? Did you fail private school and stuff like that? And I felt like that kind of took it a little personally. It was a little hard to socialize with a lot of people. So I just kind of stayed within my own group of people who like to play basketball after school. And that's literally all we did every day. Play basketball, play games, go back to classes. Sometimes I wouldn't really finish my homework or pay attention in class. And I didn't get along with my teachers either. And that just ended up becoming me taking a break from public school even, and then doing homeschooling to finish my credits to get I think it's called a GRE. Basically, it's a high school equivalent for your diploma. So I took basically my last year for my senior year. I just stayed home. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I wouldn't even hang out with my friends because like they would care about me, but I mean everyone's got their own stuff to worry about. So I actually spent almost a year just being at home and just doing this adult classes. Like it's super trivial work because there's almost a joke like the type of things that you need to do to be able to pass the credits. It's just basically standardized tests. Like you read a thing, it'll ask you what's the definition of these vocab words. You just write it and then you pass, and then you get your credits. It's not a very honorable way to get your high school diploma, but at the time that was like what allowed me to at least complete that segment of my life, that chapter. And so the next step was I didn't apply to any colleges at the time either. I didn't. I did take the SATs and everything like that. I have a GPA, but they weren't very strong. So I think I wouldn't have made it into any school anyways, and I didn't have the motivation to apply. I didn't have any reason to apply.
Mhm.
It was definitely tough, on my parents and tough on myself to like get the confidence to move forward. But the train goes on, and I applied to community college and just enrolled in some general classes just to get the minimum requirements. And so I was like, okay, I'll sign up for some macroeconomics, some economics. I'll just declare that as my major for now, and go from there. And so yeah, that's the quick story about why I went to private school and how that ended up going to community college.
Right on, right on. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot there that I didn't even know as well. I think I always got bits and pieces, but yeah, no, major props to yeah, but I bet that's wasn't an easy journey, but
Literally started
life
from
life takes us interesting places, but I think it's the diversity of our experiences that we need to kind of cherish, and just like all the learning lessons we take away from all that. But no, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So then, yeah. So okay, we go to high school, and then we go to community college, and yeah, you want to kind of share the rest of that?
Oh,
Because
the aftermath of just like starting from community college and where I went from there.
Mhm.
I did a lot of things I'm not proud of in community college. Now, the one things that I can say that I am proud of was I stayed away from drugs and alcohol, because I already knew that's not going to help me in my current position. But I like to stay active. I still continue to play a lot of basketball at the time, and that was my main community. Take your classes, after classes, go to the basketball courts and just play with whoever's on the court. That helped me build some self-esteem, because if I was doing well, at least it can be like, hey man, like I feel good that I can win a few games. If I lost, I'm like, man, how do I get better? Go to the gym, go work out, stuff like that. Now my classes there were okay. Like I did fairly well. I wasn't like an outstanding student, but I think I was pretty happy to be able to get like pass classes with above average score, so stay above the curve type of thing. And I remember I think I took past macroeconomics, and then next quarter I was going to do microeconomics. And I got along with the teacher actually in community college. I think I understood that this is a second chance basically to catch up with my friends. And they would come back, during the breaks, and I would still see them, but I felt very insecure knowing that they're all off in college now. They got their own set of new friends, and I'm like, hey, I felt like I'm left behind now. And that motivated me to try to like, get on track, get back, and then like prove that, hey, like I can be with you guys. I can also contribute, because like you guys are all moving along, and you don't want to like hang out with a loser too. So I'm trying to prove that I can also keep up and pick myself up. And it's not going to be easy, but gonna at least got to do what I can to get in, right? So but it was definitely a challenge. To be a good student requires so many different things. It's not just like, oh, I want to get a good grade, you're gonna get a good grade. You actually have to put in the work, and I didn't have the work ethics. So I can do well in a quarter. I might actually end up slipping the next quarter, just because it requires a maintenance of a lifestyle and habits. And because my lifestyle and habits weren't very routine, like I would sleep in a lot and miss classes, that would contribute to me not doing the homework well and not being able to do the tests well. And it was just very chaotic. My parents were very worried about me, and they trying to figure out what they can do, because I clearly can't make the decisions for myself and I'm not capable of getting myself in order. So I actually struggled, and I'll share this story. So I did well in the macroeconomics course, and I applied to be a tutor for macroeconomics in the following quarter. And that school is on the quarter system. So I actually got approved, and I got hired to be a tutor for that class for the next quarter.
Nice.
And I was very excited. I was like, this is a great turning point. This is a great opportunity for me to, like, do some stuff and be very productive and turn a new leaf. The very first class that I had to teach, I overslept and I ended up just quitting everything afterwards because I had too much shame. So I quit being a tutor. I quit all my classes and I just withdrew from classes that quarter. I just felt like I couldn't face my teacher. Like, after having done that, I was like, man, how could I do this? And so I took a break, a leave of absence from school, and it was really tough. I couldn't pick myself up. And what my parents ended up having me do was I went to Beijing to sign up for some language program in the Beijing Language and Culture University. And for 1 year, the program was for 6 months, but I ended up extending it for another half year. I stayed in Beijing for 1 year, and I went in. Half day was you do language classes, and that's where I got to meet a whole bunch of people. My class was about 16, 17 people. I had a roommate who was from Italy, and
like white dude.
He was in. Sorry.
He was like a white dude.
Yeah, he was actually half. His dad was Italian, and his mom was from Singapore. So he was half of Asian descent, half of Italian descent, and he was handsome. He actually got picked up to be a model, but some headhunter was asking him to be in a commercial because he's like, wow, you're so handsome and you know how to speak Chinese, like, and like he's like mixed, like, ethnicity. So he's like, wow, like, and this guy really is a model, like he's very handsome. So I was like, wow, like this guy's so cool. I was only like 19, 20 at the time, and he was 25. He was finishing up his master's, submitting his thesis at the time. I was just like, whoa, this guy knows everything. He even got his dad was actually a chef, so he bought a lot of cooking ingredients with him, like in vacuum seals, and he would actually cook for me carbonara and some other Italian delicacies. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, he was a very nice roommate, and he was very. I told him I'm from America. He's like, you're not American. He's like, everything you do and say is not American, so you're not American. You're fake American. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then we were just like, help each other learn Mandarin, because that was the whole point of the thing. And he actually ended up staying in China and getting married. I haven't kept in touch with him, unfortunately, but I still have him on my Facebook, and I see he's actually he married a Japanese woman, and they're in China. I think he's a manager at some restaurant, and so he ended up staying there. But everything I shared earlier about, like, the class that I was with, it was about 16, 17 people. There weren't more than 2 people from the same country. So we had someone from, like, I think it was Slovenia, one person from Russia, one person from Korea, a person from Japan, one person from Hong Kong, one person from 2 people from Indonesia, 2 people from Thailand, me and another guy who was also, like, in high school, like a teenager. He was from America, someone from France. So it was a very, very diverse background. And these people weren't like American, like Americanized at all, because like they never went. A lot of these people haven't been to America. They just went straight from their country to China to study. Some of them were running family businesses, so they needed to learn Mandarin to help, some of their family business, like learn another language type of thing. Some of them just finished school and they're just doing the transition period. Some people were already like retiring. They're like, oh, I just want to come to China, explore and learn a new language. And so it was a very good demographic, a good diverse experience, different cultures, and had a lot of fun. But again, those people that I really like felt like I was drawn to by their charisma and their abilities were the engineers, or the people with that kind of background. And that ended up giving me this huge, like, trigger moment where I was thinking, like, wow, like, China was still in a developing phase this time. So me going there, I actually realized, wow, not everybody gets to live as comfortably as we do in California. And it helped me realize that I took a lot for granted. But it motivated me to realize that, hey, I actually have the potential. I feel confident that I'm capable of learning skills that I could use to become an engineer, and build technology, build infrastructure to improve people's lives. Because I realized that my life was good because I have a lot of good technology. I have a lot of good infrastructure, like clean water, clean food, like good buildings, good structural integrity for a lot of stuff, and good communities, good education. But in a lot of places around the world, they don't have a lot of those amenities or resources yet. And engineers are people who bring those type of solutions to, and bring those type of resources to people. So that became my calling, and that became like it's a long-term story, but that was on the back of the mind since then for the rest of my life. And that's how I ended up getting to where I am now, where I can say like, hey, I gone through the engineering process. I've worked as an engineer in the industry now, and still am kind of working in the engineering industry somewhat. And it's a little bit of a pivot, but like it's still in the same space. So yeah, that was a very transformative experience, and helped me kind of gain a direction, even though I didn't necessarily have the tools. But that direction became something that I focus on for the rest of my life.
Right on, right on. Awesome. Yeah, wow, that's very profound. Yeah, we find motivation in strange places. But I think yeah, I think what was I definitely relate to that as well, where I wasn't a fantastic student growing up. I wasn't like high school valedictorian or anything. I don't even think I was in like the top 100 of my high school. I didn't have like a stellar GPA, and again, I think my mentality going into the next stage of my career was I'll take whatever the best I can get. My parents tell me I need to go to a good college. That's gonna be my goal. I'm gonna try to go to a good college, and then fucking figure it out from there. But I think like after I got my first job, I kind of gave myself a little bit more purpose. Uh, that that experience, I think, definitely helped me get into grad school in the first place. Because like thinking back, writing my, I don't know if anybody even reads these things, but writing my grad application, like I had a specific purpose to it. Like, oh, I wanted to do material science because XYZ, right? Because I had this, this experience contributing in this area, and I want to contribute more. I want to learn more, and this is a good institution for me to learn more. Because XYZ, and I want to learn under this professor uh, to do, because XYZ, and that it was very, very focused. I had a lot more focus, and I think it was because I had that sense of direction and purpose. And I think, yeah, I think like my maybe even like one takeaway from both of our experiences is that you don't have to be like a star student. You don't have to be like a genius, growing up. But I think having that interest, having something that you like to do, that you can see yourself doing, that you want to contribute to, I think will take you the rest of the way. Will kind of uh, help give you that motivation to continue. And I think it may not be too um, controversial to say, but I think that part of it has to do with like the quote unquote Asian culture. I feel like like the Asian culture is very much like they beat it into you, to get good grades. They don't care about what you want to do. It's just you do this because you have to. And when you grow up with somebody telling you that all your life, you get disinterested, right? So I think um yeah, and I think whether through personal experience, whether through like talking to other people, talking to friends, I think having that that interest in something is important. Whether it's just more exposure to the news, to the outside world. Um, yeah, so that's cool. That's a really cool story. Um, yeah, let's see. I guess uh so yeah, I guess one thing we didn't touch was, yeah, at some point you went back to slow, right? And like studied
Mm,
material science, right? And like that kind of catapulted you to that next stage, right? In your
right. So I'll fast forward a little bit now. I went through several other cycles of progress and then setbacks, progress and setbacks. But eventually, I was able to go through the community college kind of program. And when I was looking for majors, one of the focuses in the tech, or the I guess one of the focuses in the technology that I wanted to go into was sustainable energy. Um, Now, my expertise at that time, if you can call it that, based off my grades and my interest, was in chemistry. And I got very involved in a lot of the school activities there. I actually started my own club my last year of community college, which is the chemistry club. And it was an accredited club under the American Chemical Society. So we got funding from that. We got a professor involved in helping us facilitate that. And we also got one of the employees in the chemistry lab who works in the stock room, who helps us, manage all the laboratory stuff like that. He was actually a graduate from one of the UC school systems, and he was a explosives officer at their chemistry club at that school. So he heard that we were doing this stuff, and I had to do a lot of networking, and I recruited him to be part of our club. And he would have access. I mean, he has access to all the stockroom chemicals, and he has access to all the experiments he did when he was in school. So he had up a lot of demonstrations. So um, during our school year, we'd have like fundraisers, we'd have social events where different clubs can showcase different things. And so I actually had a lot of friends in the other engineering clubs, like the math club, the engineering club, the science and engineering club, computer science club, and we actually formed like an alliance with each other. They already had their own alliance. I actually inserted myself into the alliance by
nice.
having a lot of friendships. We took classes together, we all studied together, and so we would help each other all the time. And so everyone was very cooperative and supportive, and we wanted to collaborate where we could. I didn't really see myself able to like get as invested in some of the projects they were doing, but we knew we're all in the same community because we're doing the same classes. So the science, technology, engineering, math, the STEM kind of hub, we're all kind of correlated. So we decided, hey, we each get funds from the school administration, whatever the school like student body kind of entity, whatever. So each club has their own funding, and then the ones that do well get more funding. So if we pool our resources together, we actually can throw bigger events. And so that's what we did. And I suggested we do this rotation thing where it's a different club hosting the event, but we all pool the same resources to do different parts of it. So the event, it's like we had one of the my friend was the president for one club, another friend was the president for another club. So we can do this like good rotation for different things. And so for a lot of the stuff we did like t-shirt sales. We bought pizzas, we bought funding to do demos for our experiments. And then like sometimes we'd have community events where elementary school students would come and they would be able to see us do demos like Pi Day, stuff like that. And so it was really fun. Sorry, but that was kind of a
So
tangent.
it's like the Avengers of STEM.
Exactly. It was one of the best experiences I had throughout my academic career. It was very innocent and it was very helpful, and it was just very it was a very good supportive community because everyone was just as innocent and naive as the next. So
Yeah.
um But anyways,
I'm having yeah, that sounds
Mhm.
amazing. I can't say there was a community like that at Irvine at all. Um, Not that I know of. I could have sworn I looked into engineering clubs. Now I know why you say that you were kind of disappointed with the community at UCLA. I think
Oh yeah.
coming from that, going to uh I guess UCLA had like EGSA, which like I was on the board of, but I mean like it was like socials here and there, and you get together once a quarter for food, but like people go there and they eat and then they go back and like that's it. And sometimes there's like hiking and stuff. So I mean, like depending on the involvement, that was kind of cool, but I think a lot of it maybe had to do with like also the age, maybe like the age range. I tend to have like in my experience, I think like towards the grad school level, like at least for me, it just seems like networking becomes like kind of takes a back seat. And granted, I think is because like you're more busy with labs and with all this work. I think a part of it is that, but I think like generally speaking, I find like undergrad like earlier college experiences are more social. I don't know how broadly applicable that is, but I think yeah, like just people are older, the demographics a little older, people are more mature. I think the focus is just to get that education and get out. Um, I think a part of it is that as well. As yeah, I think that personally, I also have comparing my social experience in undergrad and grad. It was night and day. It was kind of night and day. Like in undergrad, there's like a million different clubs that you can be a part of, that everybody is a part of. And in grad school, it's mainly just one or two. And usually, like a handful of people show up to those things. uh, but, it kind of is what it is. But cool. No, yeah, really cool. Uh, yeah, no,
I
I think
mean,
we have enough.
I don't want to undersell the fact that like, these big UCs and larger research universities don't have good communities or good resources. I think it's just a very different community. Like at a community college, you only have that first 2 years of what a traditional bachelor's university would have. So you don't get the opportunity to have older students share kind of like how do you get up to what should you prepare for junior and senior type of coursework, and you don't have as much access to a lot of internship stuff that you would get from other students. Now at the community college that I was in, given the proximity we were to a lot of businesses in our area here in Northern California, we had a lot of access from the teachers, and then their programs, they had internship opportunities. And that was actually what basically got me on this fast track towards getting my career jump started. After my first year at a community college, within that engineering program at Foothill, I was able to get a summer research opportunity. Now, it wasn't very glamorous. I wasn't publishing anything, but we got to like kind of see what it's like to work with a research professor, and we got to work in the lab. We get to be familiar with the process, and we get some guidance from students, in their grad program, like assistant professors and professors who are in research, who are much more wise and capable of giving some guidance in your career. And that network was really great, because you get to be. It was only a handful of students that get that opportunity in a community college. Like it's available, but it's really something that you got to fight for. And that led to my second internship the following summer, which was at NASA, where I got to work on SEM. And that was part of a more like larger like program. And that helped me get my next internship the following summer after I transferred, and then so forth. So those
Oh,
opportunities, like the earlier you get it, like once you have that experience, you can get the second experience much easier. But if you don't have that first one and you don't take opportunity to get it early, then it's much harder to get it later in your kind of later in your bachelor's kind of experience, because
Oh, absolutely.
the same students in your year, there will be some that have that experience, and you're going to be competing with those people.
Yes.
And a lot of them, they care more about your work experience rather than your grades and stuff like that, because those are actual real life experiences that you can translate to what you're like in a work environment rather than what you're like as a student, because the students are like potential, but like work experience is nothing is a substitute for work experience. So
right, 100%. And like when you dig into the weeds, like, you know, does somebody with work experience actually mean that he'll be a good fit for the role? It may not, right, may not be. You may be doing something entirely different, but yeah, like on paper, like it's just the way that candidates are evaluated, that is just so important. Yeah, I completely agree. Even like my undergrad.
I don't agree that the system is good to have that, and it's not bad that it has that either, but it's just the way it is, and people kind of don't have the time to invest all that time to do a check on every single candidate. The thing that jumps out like immediately is what sticks in people's minds, and then they have to just narrow it down from a short list after, you know, they see like a glimpse of who you are on paper. So
100%.